Hello, everyone. My name is Jess Schwade, and I am the grant writer and administrator with Asian Women's Shelter. And today I'm going to do a presentation as part of the AWS Life Skills workshops. So today I'm going to be presenting about workplace safety. This is including HR, OSHA, and knowing your rights. If you don't know what HR, OSHA, or workplace rights are, then you're in the right place. And hopefully by the end of this, you will have a better understanding of what they are and what your rights are when you're in the workplace. So, starting off, what is HR? Maybe you've heard about it before. HR stands for Human Resources, and usually when someone talks about HR, they're referring to the Human Resources Department of their organization. So, Asian Women's Shelter has an HR person who does these sorts of things that I'm going to explain. Um, and what is it that these human resources people do? And the answer is a lot. They connect um, people at the management level, so like an executive director, the CEO, people who are running the organization to the employees. So that's people like you, like me, who are, working every day for the organization. And I'll get into more specifics on what they do on the next slide. So, what is it that people who work in human resources actually do? So, they oversee labor law compliance. So, that's whether it's state laws, county laws, federal laws. They are making sure that the organization is following these laws. They maintain the employment standards. So, that can be making sure that the employees are following the laws as well, making sure that people who are working at the organization are meeting the standards that they're supposed to be meeting. HR people are part of the interviewing and hiring processes. So if you're interviewing for a job, you'll be talking to the human resources person at some point. And if you are given a job offer, they'll be part of the hiring process, such as helping you fill out the paperwork you're supposed to do and helping explain your benefits and all those sorts of things. HR is part of performance management. So that's like usually once a year, your organization will do a review of your performance and people will provide feedback, um, see if things are going well, not going well. If there's any sort of issues or anything like that, HR will be present to kind of oversee the process. They also do employee benefits, so that's medical insurance, dental insurance, any sort of other benefits that the organization might offer. They maintain all the employee files. They're in charge of staff well-being and then employee offboarding. So if you choose to leave the job, or something else happens and you have to leave the job, then you'll be talking to HR about how do you leave and what's the correct process for that. So that's kind of what does HR do, kind of as a broad administrative overview. And if you're like, what does that mean for me personally? When will I actually interact with HR? Here's some specifics that a couple of I mentioned already, but I'll go over them again. So when will you interact with HR? That could be the person, multiple people, the whole department, etc. So like I said, if you're interviewing for a job, you're going to be interacting with the HR people. And if you get that job when you're onboarding, so like when I started this job, I met with the HR person and they had to review my documents to make sure that I'm allowed to work. And then I had to fill out a bunch of different forms. So each organization, there'll be forms that are required by the state of California and by the federal government, but then there will be specific forms that are required for that organization. For example, with AWS, you have to sign a confidentiality agreement. So that was something that I had to do. The HR person at AWS is the one who helped me with all of those specific forms that I had to sign before starting. And then they also help you set up getting paid. So you have to fill out some forms for that, and then you decide if you want to get paid via a check or if you want to do direct po deposit. And they help you set up that so to make sure you're getting paid. Um, they also do annual performance evaluations. I mentioned those on the last slide as well. That's usually when a supervisor will check in with you at least once a year to say, these are the things you're doing well, these are the things where you could, maybe see some improvement. Overall, this is how things are going. And then HR is present at those evaluations, and then those are usually stored on your file. Um, just as historical information. So maybe if you go in and ask for a raise, they can look at your past performance evaluations and say, oh, wow, this person has been doing amazing. Like on their performance evaluations, they keep getting the highest score. So, yes, we definitely should be giving them a raise. That's when that could come in handy. Um, you may interact with HR if there's a salary change or benefit change. So, like I was just saying, if you ask for a raise and then if that gets approved and your salary is going to be changed, then the organization will probably um, ask you to talk to the HR person to finalize the salary changes. And if there's any new documents you might have to sign or update, that'll be with the HR person. And then same for benefits. So benefit means anything that's not part of your salary. So that includes medical insurance. If there's dental insurance, some organizations offer different sorts of leaves and different sorts of um, maybe mental health services. There might be some sort of employee action plan, or maybe you can submit certain health items for reimbursement. Um, those are all parts of your benefits, and usually the HR people are in charge of making sure that everyone who is on staff knows about the benefits, knows when to sign up for the benefits, and is informed if the benefits change. So when you start a new job, the HR person will take you through the medical insurance and all those sorts of things. And then if the medical insurance changes, um, they'll be the ones talking to you about that as well. And then the same for any sort of leave. So if you need maternity leave, if you need disability leave, any sort of leave that you might need, that also has to go usually through your supervisor, and then you'll definitely be talking to HR about that. Um, and then there's annual employee training requirements. So this is usually mandated by, the state. California has requirements of like you have to do um, training about conflict resolution. You have to do training about knowing, your civil rights and those sorts of things. So every year as employees, we do those trainings, and then the HR person sends us a form where you have to sign and say that you actually did attend that training. And most of the time, if you attend a training, there'll be a sign-in sheet or you'll get some sort of certificate at the end. And those will all have to be given to HR so that you can prove that you did go to the training. Um, then, if there's any sort of dispute between either you and another coworker, or between other coworkers, or between um, you and your supervisor or anything like that, that's when HR can also come in and be kind of like a third party to help mediate and manage any sort of dispute that's having. And it doesn't have to be like a whole big, terrible situation. It can be for small things of just like um, maybe your manager keeps asking you to come in and cover a shift, but is only giving you 12 hours notice, and you're actually supposed to be getting 24 hours of notice. And maybe you tried talking to your supervisor and said, hey, you're supposed to be giving me 24 hours of notice and you're only giving me 12. And maybe the supervisor says, oh, I'll try and do better next time. And then they don't. They keep just only giving you 12 hours notice. That's when you could go to HR and say, hey, like my manager is only giving me 12 hours notice. They're supposed to be giving me 24 hours of notice. Can you help me mediate this? And then that's when HR will come in and talk to you, talk to the supervisor, and try to work together to find a mutually beneficial solution. Um, and then the last one I mentioned in the previous slide of if you're leaving your job for any reason, whether you're quitting or if the company is having layoffs or anything else, HR will be contacting you. And if you're quitting, usually you send a notice or a letter to HR telling them that you're leaving. And then they do any sort, if there's forms for you to fill out, if there's any sort of offboarding items that need to be done, then they'll take you through all of those. So hopefully that provides a good overview. Sorry, is quite wordy. Um, so that's the end of what is human resources, the human resources department, and when I will be interacting with them with my job, etc. And that's it from me. So thank you for watching. Hopefully, you now know what HR, OSHA, and workplace rights are. And if you have follow-up questions, reach out to your AWS advocate and they can put you in touch with me. And maybe we can have a future training as well. So thanks for watching.